Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Portland, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar tonight. My name is Audrey Zunkel-DeCourcy, and I'm the Vice President of the Portland League. We're excited to bring this program to you to dive into ranked choice voting, moving Portland forward with confidence. This is the first in our series of community education panels about the 2024 election, helping Portlanders be informed voters and excited about our city's future. You can learn about our other programs and find our impartial election information on our website, lwvpdx.org. The League is dedicated to making democracy work. One of our core beliefs is that democracy functions best when voters are informed about issues and engaged in their communities. And for these reasons, we present programs like this to give our members and neighbors an opportunity to hear about important community issues. After tonight, please tell your friends, colleagues, and family to watch the video or listen to the podcast of this program. Links to the recordings will be posted on our website, lwvpdx.org, next week. Our moderator for tonight's discussion is Melanie Billings-Yun. Melanie brings with her extensive knowledge about ranked choice voting and charter reform as she was co-chair of the Portland Charter Commission. She now leads the League's ranked choice voting team. I'll turn this program over to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Audrey. Just 1 minute here. Okay, hello, everyone. With Portland's first ranked choice voting election just weeks away, we look forward to sharing with you what we can expect leading up to, during, and after the vote count. Tonight, you will hear from an outstanding panel of voting experts who combined have worked on ranked choice elections in over 40 jurisdictions, from Maine to Hawaii, from Alaska to New Mexico, and now right here in Portland. We're deeply grateful to our panelists for joining us this evening to give us a deeper understanding of ranked choice voting so that we can face this November election with confidence. It's my honor to introduce them. Callie Odell is Election District and Candidate Specialist with Multnomah County Elections, which will be handling vote counting in the upcoming city election. As part of the team working towards the smooth and effective administration of ranked choice voting in Portland, Callie specializes in working with local jurisdictions, voters, and candidates seeking access to be on Multnomah County ballots. Callie will be speaking to us and answering your questions on what your ballots will look like, how to fill out your ballot to maximize your vote, and how ranked choice voting will be counted to ensure accurate results. Welcome, Callie. Next, we have Grace Ramsey, co-founder and co-director of Democracy Rising, a national organization that works directly with communities to expand democracy by providing organizing strategies and educational campaigns to ensure just implementation of reforms. Grace brings over a decade of experience leading voter education training efforts across the country, including ranked choice voting education campaigns in 47 cities and 5 states. In 2023, she was named the City of Portland's Voter Education and Outreach Partnership Coordinator, overseeing the program to educate hard-to-reach voters on ranked choice voting by building and supporting a strong coalition of community providers, of which I am proud to say the League of Women Voters of Portland is one. Grace will speak on the importance of voter education in the successful implementation of electoral reforms and in ensuring that all communities are able to participate fully in the democratic process. She will then describe the educational outreach taking place currently in Portland to smooth the path to a successful first ranked choice election. Welcome, Grace. Our third speaker is Sean Dugar, founder and president of CORE, the Collective of Organizers of Reformed Elections, and he is CEO of Democratic Solutions. Sean has over 2 decades of experience as an organizer, advocate, and champion of democracy. He is also one of the most energetic people I have ever met. In 2021, as Education Program Director for Rank the Vote New York City, Sean led an outreach and organizing campaign that reached 1.5 million New Yorkers. He mobilized a coalition of over 750 organizations, conducted 600 plus educational events, trained 450 candidates and campaigns, and knocked on 55,000 doors. Sean will share his experience from the ranked choice voting elections in New York and other cities and give us insight into what voters in Portland can expect when they cast their ballots. Welcome, Sean. Topping it off, we have Tiffany Montemayor, Senior Director of Programming and Outreach with the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center and previous Public Relations Manager for the State of Alaska's Division of Elections, responsible for the public education campaign during Alaska's successful implementation of ranked choice voting in 2020. Tiffany will tell us about ranked choice voting in Alaska, how the state prepared for it, how voters have responded to it, the effect of ranked choice voting on campaigns and outcomes, and what we can learn from this experience. Thank you, Tiffany. Each of our panelists will speak for about 10 minutes. Then we'll open up the floor for audience questions. We invite you to post questions in the Zoom chat at any time during the program. They'll be read out and answered as time allows. If your question is for a particular speaker, please note that in the chat. Now, let's go to our speakers, starting with Kali.
Thank you, Melanie. It's such a delight to be here with everybody tonight. As Melanie mentioned, I work for Multnomah County Elections, which administers elections for all voters who are registered in Multnomah County. That means we design, print, and mail ballots to county voters, and we also receive, process, and tally the ballots that our voters cast. And so, yes, as Melanie said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by talking about some of the new experiences that Portlanders are going to have with the ranked choice voting ballot, how to cast your ballot successfully in the upcoming November election, and a little bit about how you can find out about results as we report them after ballots are cast. So, as some of you, many of you maybe know, in 2022, the City of Portland adopted a charter reform amendment that changed its structure of government and implemented ranked choice voting. So Multnomah County Elections has been working with the City of Portland for almost 2 years to implement ranked choice voting for City of Portland voters. So what does all this mean for Portland elections? There means a few different things. First, there are now going to be 12 city council positions that are elected from 4 districts in the City of Portland, which is a little bit different from having 4 city commissioners elected at large. There is still going to be a mayor and an auditor who are also going to be on the ballot and elected by the entire City of Portland. Every Portlander can expect to have the mayor contest, the auditor contest, and their city councilor district contest on their ballot this November. And they will be able to choose in those city councilor contests, they will be electing 3 councilors to represent their district. And how they're going to do that is with our new voting method, ranked choice voting. And so I do want to now get into what is ranked choice voting, or RCV as it's often called, because ranked choice voting is a little bit of a mouthful to say a lot. So how ranked choice voting works is that instead of only selecting 1 candidate on your ballot, you will be able to rank up to 6 candidates on your ballot in order of preference. So the first ranked candidate on your ballot is the person that you most want to win. The second ranked candidate is the person you second most want to win, and so forth, up to 6 candidates. And when we tallied the ballots after we received them, what we'll do is we start by tallying all of those first choice rankings and see how many first choice votes each candidate gets. If no candidate receives more than 50% of the votes of the first choice votes outright, then the candidate who has the least number of first choice votes gets eliminated, and their votes are reallocated to their voters' second choice candidate. And so that process continues with candidates with the lowest votes being eliminated and their votes being redistributed until eventually one candidate gets over 50% of the vote and wins the election. So this is called single winner RCV because it produces a single winner. And City of Portland voters will be using single winner RCV when electing the mayor and the auditor. For city council contests, you will be electing three winners. And so in order to have a process that produces multiple winners, we use a process that's called multi-winner RCV or multi-winner ranked choice voting. And it works essentially the same as single winner ranked choice voting, except that because we're trying to produce three winners out of the votes, instead of having a 50% over 50% threshold, the threshold for the multi-winner contests is 25% plus one vote. So as soon as a candidate reaches 25% plus one vote, they have been elected to office. There's also a little bit of an extra piece to that of if once a candidate surpasses the amount of vote that they need in order to be elected, if they have excess votes, a percentage of every vote that they receive is redistributed to other candidates to help produce three winners out of that contest. So it may sound a little bit different than what you're used to, but I will say that most of the voter experience is going to remain the same. Portlanders are still going to receive their ballots in the mail. You're still going to have a chance to vote by filling in your bubbles for your preferred candidates, and you're still going to return your ballots through the mail or at a secure ballot box. But because we are doing this a little bit differently and using this ranking system, your ballot is going to look a little bit different. So I'm going to pause and share my screen so that you can hopefully see what this is going to look like. And of course, all of a sudden, it doesn't want to show what the ballot is going to look like. So I'll go ahead and describe it to you. So the ballot, instead of just having a series of one bubbles, you will have a ballot that is designed in a grid pattern. And so you'll have a list of candidates down the left side of your ballot, and then across the top of your ballot, there's going to be 6 columns: rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, rank 4, rank 5, and rank 6. And you will fill in the bubble that corresponds with both the candidate and the rank that you would like to assign that candidate. And that will allow you to indicate which candidate you want to rank number 1, which candidate you want to rank number 2, which candidate you want to make rank number 3, and so on. What you'll want to keep in mind, we do get some questions about some different scenarios that might happen with a grid style ballot where you're ranking folks. And some people really want to know if I really love a candidate, can I give them all of my rankings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and will that help them? And the answer is you can certainly do that, but it's not going to make a difference to your candidate one way or the other because your vote only counts once. So if you choose to do that, then we will count your vote for that candidate. And if they're eliminated, we won't actually be able to reallocate your vote to another candidate because we won't know who you're interested in ranking second. So it doesn't help your candidate any if you choose to rank that way, but you don't have to rank any candidates. You can rank as many candidates as you want, up to 6. So if you decide that you only like one candidate and only want to rank one candidate, that is perfectly all right to choose to do. Some other things to keep in mind with ranked choice voting is that when you're filling out your grid, something that sometimes happens is that you might accidentally fill in for your, say, your first choice ranking, you might fill in two candidates as your first choice, and make a mistake on your ballot where you've assigned two candidates to the same ranking. And if that happens, you can indicate on your ballot by crossing out one of the rankings to let us know how you actually intended to vote on your ballot. And we still, if you put an X on it or right next to it, not this one, we'll know what you mean and we'll be able to count your vote how you wanted it. If it makes you feel more comfortable, you can also request from our office, from Multnomah County Elections, you can request a replacement ballot and fill out a clean ballot without that error on it. If you didn't realize that you made that mistake and we received that ballot with multiple bubbles filled out in the same ranking, we'll actually have to skip that ranking because we won't know what you intended. And so instead of counting that first choice ranking, we'll have to go and count your second choice ranking as your first choice, if that's the first one that we're able to read and understand as a distinct ranking. The other thing that sometimes happens is sometimes people skip rankings. They might rank candidate A1, they might skip rank number 2 accidentally, and then rank candidate B number 3. And if that happens, what we do is we skip the skipped ranking. So we treat your first choice ranking as number 1, and then in that case, we would treat your third choice ranking as number 2 and move up your rankings so that we can really make sure that we're counting we're maximizing the count of your ballot with our understanding of what your intention is for the vote. The other thing that I do want to mention about what will be a little bit different with your ballot is that it's going to be 2 pages, which does happen with ballots sometimes. So you may have experienced this in past elections. But the ranked choice voting ballot is going to be on a separate page than other contests that you're going to get to vote on for state and local races. And so it's just really important to remember that if you want to vote in all of those contests, you'll need to fill out both pages of your ballot, enclose both of them in your ballot return envelope, and make sure that both pages get back to us in the same envelope so that we can count all of your votes on all of the contests that you choose to vote on. If you're interested in learning more about this process and seeing a little bit more about what a ranked choice ballot will look like, we do have some examples on our website. You can visit multnomahvotes.gov, and we have a ranked choice voting page where you can practice filling out a ranked choice ballot, get a sense of what the experience is going to be like, and get a lot more information about what this process is going to look like for Portlanders. So highly recommend that you make a visit. So the last thing that I wanted to just briefly touch on is the outcome of ranked choice voting election. So what happens when we're counting votes and figuring out who's been elected? We will be scanning our ranked choice voting ballots, just like our non-ranked choice voting ballots, and tabulating results for the City of Portland contests. And what will also be the same is that, as usual, we start posting preliminary results on election night, which is going to be November 5th this year, starting at 8 p.m. And as we continue to tabulate votes, we provide regular updates until all of the ballots are counted. We will provide a schedule of updates on our website. We will be updating ranked choice voting contests pretty much daily, at least in the first week or so after the election happens. So, like other contests, though, just something to keep in mind is that we might not know the outcome of ranked choice contests on election night. In Oregon, voters have the opportunity to return their ballots as long as they're postmarked on election night, and we receive it within 7 days. We can count that ballot. So, we don't get all of our ballots on election day. So we're still doing some counting in the days after election day. So sometimes it takes a little while to know what the results are likely to be. But we will be making those updates, like I said. And if you're interested in seeing updates as we go, you'll want to visit, like I said, multnomahvotes.gov. That will be the sole information place for Portland's ranked choice voting contest results. Some of you may be used to going to the Oregon Secretary of State's websites where they have a great system for reporting results, but unfortunately it's not yet set up to provide detailed reports for ranked choice contests. So if you're interested in seeing the tabulation process as we go, you'll want to visit our website and see results. We're going to have a great bar chart that's going to show round by round results so you can really see the process of which candidates have been eliminated, where their votes go when they're redistributed to other candidates, and be able to watch the round by round process until we arrive at who has the most votes, or at least has met the threshold that they would need to be elected. We'll also have a bunch of other tools available on our website. If you're somebody who likes to dive deeper into data, we will have that available on our website, because as always, our goal is to provide accurate, transparent, and accessible elections. And so we're very excited to be able to provide all of this information to voters at whatever level you're interested in understanding what the results and outcomes of your elections are.
Well, thank you, Kali. I'm sorry that your video didn't come up on the share screen. If you visit our league's website, you can see a sample of the ballot. And our next speaker, who is Grace, may have a sample even that she can show us. But we're now going to turn to Grace Ramsey.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it'll fit perfectly in when I talk about best practices for voter education, but we'll dive in. So you may have heard from my introduction. My name is Grace. I work at an organization called Democracy Rising, and I've been educating voters about elections, but more specifically ranked choice voting elections for over 10 years now. And I got my start in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which has made working with folks in Portland a kind of unique and circular moment for me, because Minneapolis, like Portland, uses both the single winner and the multi-winner version of ranked choice voting. And I haven't gotten to work in as many places that do that. So it's nice to come back to the basics for me. And I'm really excited to be working with folks here. I want to focus today on voter education as part of the implementation process. I think a lot of times people think, okay, we passed this policy, it's in place, great, we're all done. And when it comes to our elections, it's a little bit more involved than that, for good reason, is that we want to make sure everyone is coming along and knows what's going to happen on their ballot. I think the goal that we have collectively is that as few people as possible are surprised on election day to see that ranked choice ballot. So we are going to make sure that we are doing a comprehensive and cohesive campaign across the city, which I'll get into a little bit later. But as far as best practices go, our goal is always to make sure that people have access to information about the election beforehand. And the secret there is that's true for every kind of election, right? Every year, there's some folks who maybe just turned 18 and have never voted before, or there's folks who maybe are new to the voting process and doing it for the first time. So these sorts of efforts are actually happening all the time. But often when there's a change, there's just a lot more eyes on the process. And we want to make sure that we're doing that extra work to remind folks that the way we're voting has changed, and make sure that we're supplying them with everything that they're going to need to be able to learn about the process now and engage with it. One other thing about voter education as an approach is changing in elections. Anything that's new and different is a great time to engage voters. Maybe somebody became disillusioned and decided they didn't want to participate. Maybe somebody has just moved to the city, but the change can kind of build that enthusiasm and excitement around participating in elections, and building out voter education programs that don't tell you what to vote for, but how to vote is a really great way to capture new energy and bring new people into the fold. So we aren't just doing this because there's a change. There's always that motivation for folks working in community to engage voters, but the change can really bolster our efforts and really amplify them. And so we always want to be taking advantage of that as much as we can. And a lot of the approach to voter education is balancing concerns while not dampening enthusiasm and excitement. So when I'm working in communities, I always want to make sure if there's a community that says, hey, I'm a little bit nervous about our folks feeling prepared. I'm a little bit nervous that we haven't been able to practice with the ballot, or we haven't been able to try this out in our community. And we always want to take those concerns seriously and be responsive. And so that's one of the best practices also, is to make sure that we are talking with communities, hearing what their needs are, and being as responsive as possible and providing folks with those resources. And then the last thing I'll say is practice makes perfect. If we're doing the kind of top line best practices of ranked choice voting education, seeing the ballot is the most important thing you can do. So I'm going to take a brief moment to see if I can share my screen and show you all a ballot really quickly. It's going to take me just a moment. All right, there we go. So here is an image of what a ranked choice voting ballot looks like. This is the base for all of the voter education that we do, because when we're talking to voters, this is your job, right? If you are going in and filling out that ballot, your job is to know that the candidate you love is your first choice. The candidate you love a little less is your second choice. The candidate you like is your third choice, and so on. However it matters to you, but making sure that folks have the opportunity to do this. The other part of voter education that's really essential is letting folks know that when it comes to ranked choice voting, even if you haven't cast a ballot this way, this is a thought process you actually use all the time. I like to use the example of my nephew. He's in high school, and in a couple of years, he's going to have to make some pretty big decisions about his future. And actually, he's probably going to use ranked choice voting to do it. What do I mean? Well, what are his options? He could go to a 4-year college. He could go to a 2-year apprenticeship. He could keep working at the awesome burger joint that he works at, and he could take a gap year. We laugh when he says it, but we let him say it just so he thinks it might be an option. Now those are 4 choices that he has. And he's going to have to say, what is my favorite? What is the thing that would be best? What is it's probably an art school somewhere very far away that none of us can avoid or afford, but well, still, it might be the first choice. But if he can't have his first choice, what's his backup choice? What's the next best? That's an example of ranked choice thinking in your everyday life. And I think if you think hard about it, I know we use examples of, you go to the store and you want ice cream and they don't have your favorite flavor, but your heart's set on ice cream. You're going to pick your backup choice. And so a lot of times what we do with voter education is we take the stakes down. It can feel tense when we're talking about our elections because these are big decisions that we're making as a city. And through our programming, we really want to make sure that voters know that even though this is new, this thought process isn't new to you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully you all can use that fantastic link that was provided by the folks at the League. There are tons of great examples of sample ballots, mock elections, all kinds of things. And all of this is to make sure that by election day, we hope that every voter has seen a ballot and understands that they are able to rank their choices instead of just choosing one. Another part of it is answering those very common questions that we get. I think between Sean, Tiffany, and myself, and probably pretty quickly, Kali, there's a lot of questions that come up and they're fairly consistent. And so we've done a lot of work in making sure we have answers to those. For instance, do I have to use all 6 of my rankings? No, you can rank as many or as few as you like, right? That's a question that for all voters where this is new to that process, that question comes up because of course it does. And we always want to make sure that we're providing those answers to folks as well. So the sort of key parts of voter education to recap before I go into what we're doing in Portland specifically is this is a great opportunity to engage voters, and we're really excited to be doing that. This is a great opportunity to remind voters that this is a thought process that they're actually really familiar with, and that even if they're a little apprehensive about something new, we remind them of the ways that this actually isn't new to them. And then finally, making sure that we are answering those questions, taking those concerns seriously, and working with communities to provide them with the resources they need. So with that, I'm going to pivot to what we're actually doing this year. So I am working with a fabulous team of folks, both from the city, the county, and organizations from across the city to make sure that we're reaching communities that historically have been left out of decision-making at City Hall. If you look at the Portland.vote website, you can see the list of those communities. I don't want to distract us by listing all of them. And that was defined by a group of people who said, if this is our definition of the groups that we really want to focus on, what are those communities and how can we reach them? And we said the best way to reach those communities is not to reinvent the wheel, not to hire a ton of people to go out there and just talk to folks that they don't know, but it was really to work with community organizations that have relationships, that are trusted in their communities and that know how to best reach their voters with messages that they will engage with, that they will be able to be excited about, and they'll really be able to hear from a trusted source. And so what we've done is, one, we have launched a very exciting campaign in the media where we're going to be up on the radio, where we are going to have very beautiful one-pagers, flyers about this that I hope you'll be seeing all over the place very soon. And then the other part is me providing as much training as I can to as many people who want to learn about this in detail in the community, and then having community-based organizations do this work. So we funded 11 organizations. The League is one of them, and we couldn't be happier to be working with them to engage with their constituencies to make sure that voters are getting this information in a way that resonates with them. For some, that may be hosting a youth music festival with artists across the city and having attendees rank the different acts at that music festival. That may have been an event we had. That may be showing up at Pride this year and making sure that we had a presence where anybody who was coming to Pride could learn about the process and learn about, practice a sample ballot and learn more about it and know where to ask questions. That could be knocking on doors come this fall. I hope you all have somebody knock on your door in the next couple of months. Again, being up on radio in all of these different places, but really thinking creatively and thinking with the lens towards how can we reach people where they are? How can we bring them along on this journey and make sure that they feel confident on election day? So I will leave it there because we have so much more content and I'm sure there's plenty of questions, but I am thrilled to be working with this team. You all are really lucky to have so many dedicated folks at the city, at the county, and in your community to make this a success. And it has been an absolute pleasure to work with folks.
Thank you, Grace. It is wonderful to have someone with your level of energy supporting this venture. And so now I want to turn to someone else with a high level of energy. Sean, take it away.
Thank you, Melanie. I will say, having known Grace for a long time, she definitely has more energy than I do, especially after a good coffee. I thank you all for allowing me to be with you this evening. I am a firm believer in showing, not just telling, how ranked choice and elections work. And so I'm going to take a moment before I get started to also share my screen and play a quick video for you all.
All right. Hi there. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we are talking about Portland's new voting method, single transferable vote, also known as. So stick with me. I mean, stick with us. Hi. And we'll show you how single transferable vote works. In this video, we're going to unpack Portland's new voting method for City Council. In 2024, voters in Portland will have the option to rank candidates on the ballot. Then those rankings will be used to elect the 3 most popular candidates in each district. Say hello to your candidates. Hi. There are 5 of them, but there are only 3 seats. What to do? To get one of these seats, they need to reach the threshold. With 3 seats available, the threshold is 25% plus 1 vote. Why? Think of it like dividing a cake. If 3 people take just over a quarter, then there's not enough left for anyone else to get a full slice. Let's say in this election there are 100 votes. That means the threshold is 26 votes. We'll start by counting everyone's first choice. Let's see. Wow! Mike's our first winner! Way to go, Mike! Hooray! Okay, remember, Mike only needs 26 votes to win. Let's move Mike's extra votes, also known as surplus votes, to the second choice on his voters' ballots. But we're not just going to move the votes above the threshold because then only those voters get to support their second choice. Instead, we'll move an equal portion of every vote for Mike to the second choice on that ballot. If you're the type of person who does fractions for fun, here is the math. For the rest of us, let's just say that Mike keeps only the votes he needs and the rest is divided equally between voters' second choices. And now Ling hits the threshold. Nice job, Ling. Okay, there's 1 seat left, but no one else has enough votes to be elected. We have to eliminate the candidate with the fewest first choice votes. Sorry, Gus, you have the fewest votes, so you're out. All votes for Gus now move to his voters' second choices. This time we can move the whole vote because no part of it can count for Gus anymore. And that means Barb wins a seat. All right, Barb. And that concludes our election. Congrats, counselors. Okay, let's recap. With single transferable vote, voters rank candidates, votes are counted in rounds, and candidates can win with a combination of first choice votes, surplus votes, and votes from eliminated candidates. Aw, Gus. So if you want your favorite candidates to get as many votes as possible, make sure to rank your ballot. That's it for today. If this video was helpful to you, don't forget to hit that like button. And for more info, go to rosecityreform.org. Okay, bye.
So as I mentioned, I'm a firm believer in showing how the process works in addition to explaining it. I think that is one of the biggest lessons we learned in New York City. Reaching 1.5 million New Yorkers is not an easy process. Doing it in 15 different languages makes it even harder. And doing it in a pandemic adds a layer of complications there. So it was very important because we could not speak directly to every voter that we had videos like what we just saw, that we had explainer documents that were provided in language that explained the process of filling out the ballot. And what we found is voters understood it. It's actually the same thing we found in every place where RCV has been implemented. 85% of New Yorkers filled out their ballot and ranked two or more candidates. 90% of voters said that they found the ballot easy to understand and complete. Now, this was true regardless of age, language spoken, education level, economic status. It was true across the board that voters understood and understand how to rank their ballots. The other thing we found was that voters very much look to candidates to explain how ranked choice voting works. Candidates were the front line of voter education in New York City, and they are everywhere else. You know, I've been on the ground in Portland, and I've trained over 40 candidates running for office on how to talk to voters about ranked choice voting. In a nonpartisan fashion, everybody was invited to participate, but I think it's very important because voters look at candidates and how they campaign and the education process as a preview of how they'll govern in office. If you're able to explain ranked choice voting to me, I think you may be able to explain the budget process. I think you may be able to have a conversation with me and my community about bike lanes and pedestrian safety, right? Voters look to candidates and see how they campaign, and it is a predictor for how they'll govern. So I am an Oakland voter, so I am a native of California. I've run ranked choice candidate campaigns in the Bay Area, so in San Francisco, in Berkeley, Oakland, the cities that have had ranked choice voting for over a decade, in San Francisco, closer to 2 decades. And what we continue to see is when candidates engage with the public and tell voters the ranking process, and are at candidate forums, usually held by the League of Women Voters, where the league will ask, if you are not elected, who else would you like to see in this role? Who's your second choice? Who's your third choice? The candidates who are able to answer those questions are the ones that voters flock to. But we also know that when candidates tell voters not to rank their ballots, those voters listen to them. And more often than not, because that candidate has not asked for second and third and fourth choice votes when they need those in order to win, they don't win. Someone recently gave a great example of you're going to a ball, right? And you've been preparing for months. You've been taking dance classes because you don't dance, and you are prepared to do the waltz, and you have your best waltz prepared. You get there, and it's a tango competition. You're going to get stepped on. Your feet are going to get hurt because you have not prepared for what's in front of you. And so the same is true in a ranked choice election. Candidates who utilize ranked choice strategies, now that doesn't mean that you have to partner with someone. It can simply be asking voters to rank you on their ballot. If I'm not your first choice, make me your number 2. If I'm not your number 2, make me your number 3 or your number 4. Or candidates working together that share, have some sort of commonality, whether it is gender identity or racial identity or policies coming together and saying to their bases, rank us together on your ballot. All of that makes a difference. Voters really do look to candidates as leaders in the community for how they should complete their ballots and how they should complete the electoral process. So I know we'll have lots of questions. I will stop it there.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you for that video, which I'm a big fan of. Our final presenter today is Tiffany, and she's going to be talking to us about her experience in Alaska.
Hey, yes, that video is very cool, and I'm jealous that we didn't have videos like that in Alaska when I was there. I just want to first off start by saying that the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center and myself are not advocates. And so I'm not here to tell you, if RCV is good or bad, just that it works and that it happens. And here's what happened in Alaska. Much like Portland, RCV was part of a larger election reform in Alaska. And so their voters can update state statutes via voter initiative and petition. And in 2019, a group called the Alaskans for Better Elections started collecting signatures to put this election reform measure on the 2020 general election ballot. So there were two kind of big parts to that. One of them was that the state would switch to a nonpartisan pick one primary where the top 4 vote getters would move on to the general election, and then switching to a ranked choice voting general election. And this was for all state and federal election seats. So, a major overhaul, much like what's happening there in Portland. It did make it on the ballot, and it passed by less than 4,000 votes. In fact, it was so close that the Division of Elections did do a hand count of every single ballot that was cast in Alaska in 2020. And in the end, after 5 days of hand counting, the results were certified, and Alaska became the first jurisdiction in the world, I think, to pair a nonpartisan top 4 primary with a ranked choice voting general election for all state and federal elections. A little bit about how elections work in Alaska. So there are no counties there, and there's one central entity that administers all state and federal elections, and that is the State of Alaska Division of Elections, which was my office back in the day. The division originally had almost 2 years to implement this new system, which was set to make its debut in the November 2022 general election. There's a lot of things that go into implementing RCV because there are lots of things that have to be changed. Not everything, but there are some changes. For instance, the division needed to make some updates to voting equipment and software to make sure that it could tabulate RCV results. They needed to make some decisions on, how recounts or hand counts or results reporting was going to go now with these new changes. And then, of course, update regulations to reflect that. They needed to train poll workers and other election workers all over the state because, again, they are the central elections entity there in Alaska, to make sure that they knew how ranked choice voting works, because poll workers are actually well, you won't, doesn't really pertain to Portland because you have all by mail voting, but in Alaska, poll workers were a really great source of education, because they were the last person that a voter would speak to before they actually entered a poll booth. And so that poll worker could tell them, this is your ballot. Do you have any questions? Here's how it works. And then they had to design a new ballot. And most importantly, they had to make sure that voters understood how to correctly mark that ballot so that their vote would be counted. And then also that voters knew how their vote was going to be counted. Alaska is the largest state in the US. It is 2.5 times the size of Texas. And I know that because every time I told somebody that I was from Texas, they told me, oh, Alaska's 2.5 times bigger. So it's apparent that is a fact. Most of the state is incredibly remote. And by most, I mean 86% of Alaska's communities cannot be reached by road. And that includes Juneau, the capital, which is where I lived. You got to come in by a boat or a plane. So it makes some things a little bit difficult. More than 1/3 of Alaskans have limited or no access to the internet because of their location. Over 19% of the population is Alaska Native, and the division is required to translate materials into about 12 languages, most of which are traditionally unwritten languages. So, there are no Yupik or Inupiaq translated words for exhausted ballot or even for ranked choice voting. And so, in Alaska, we did follow a lot of the best practices that other jurisdictions were doing, like especially in New York City. They had just had their first ranked choice voting election 2 years before we did in Alaska. And, but we did have to make a few changes to the way that we did things. For instance, we relied heavily on direct mail because while we put some ads on TV, a lot of people couldn't see those ads because they maybe didn't have cable or, just things like that, or even, like I said, access to internet. And so there were some things that we had to do a little bit differently. And as a quick side story, the challenges didn't end there. In March of 2022, Alaska's sole congressman, Don Young, unfortunately passed away. And due to the new laws, we had to have a special primary election and a special general election to fill his seat. And those elections would be under the new system. And so I thought that we had 5 more months to educate voters about the new primary, but now we only had like 6 more weeks. And I thought that we had 8 more months to do RCV education, but we had 5 more months. And so it was interesting. It was an interesting time. And so now I want to dispel a few myths about RCV based on my experience, a little along the line of Sean's, show you. So a common argument against RCV is that voters won't understand it. But just like in every other place that uses RCV, Alaskans overwhelmingly understood it. In its first use of RCV, polling showed that 85% of Alaska's voters reported RCV to be simple. And more importantly, and something I'm very proud of, 99.9% of voters cast a valid ballot where their vote was counted. They marked it correctly. And to be completely honest, though, not everybody in Alaska likes ranked choice voting. But they understood it. So, that's the most important thing. Some RCV opponents say that it takes longer to count the results, but in 2022, Alaska's results were released in the same timeline as it had been in all the years before that. And I believe the same is going to go for Portland. It's not going to take any longer to get your results just because you're using ranked choice voting. Another myth is that RCV elections can't be audited or recounted. But in Alaska, we performed an audit of that RCV election following the same procedures that we had always used for elections, again, in all the years before that. And we performed a recount for a state House seat and a state Senate seat. Some people claim that RCV can't be hand counted, but it absolutely can. And it would take a pretty long time, but it can be done. And in fact, I got to see it with my own eyes. The Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center worked with Multnomah County election admins to perform a mock hand count of a proportional ranked choice voting contest, should Portland need one. And so I got to go up to Portland earlier this summer and help test out the hand count procedures that Multnomah County had been writing. And it was such a smooth operation and just really great to see how everybody was working and how they were working things out. And it made me even more confident in the whole process in general, no matter where it's taking place. Part of my current job is to research best practices in RCV jurisdictions all over the country. And I want y'all to know that not only are the city of Portland and Multnomah County following RCV best practices, they're actually creating new ones that other places are going to be able to look to and follow. And that's really something. It's special, and Portland is, going to be making an imprint on democracy in other places in the country. And I just think that's super cool. So your election administrators there have been working so hard to prepare for the upcoming election. And so if you get a chance, please thank them for their work. I can tell you from experience that election officials are not thanked nearly as much as they should be. And especially those who are implementing a brand new voting system like they are there in Portland. Lastly, I want to leave you with this, and it's something that I tell everybody. And so there was one media outlet who called Alaska's election the most chaotic election of 2022. And if Alaska can successfully implement an RCV election, given all of its logistical challenges, having a full-time staff of only 26 for the whole state, working with translation panels to literally create new words, and do it all in a truncated timeline with two special surprise elections, then anywhere can do it. And just seeing everything that I've been seeing there in Portland, I know that it's going to be done well over there. And I'm so excited for y'all to get to experience that.
Well, thank you, Tiffany, and thank you all of our speakers. That was so motivating and enlightening. I could listen to you all evening, but we have quite a few questions lined up. So let's get to them. And Tiffany, I think I'm going to start with you right away, because you opened up a real question in my mind. And that is, other than funding and airplanes, what was the most important thing you needed to get your job done in Alaska?
I wish we would have had some private airplanes. That would have been actually very helpful in reaching all of the rural communities there. But other than money, the most important thing and the biggest thing that I needed and had was support from my coworkers, from our staff. We had an incredibly dedicated group of people working there at the division in 2022, and they were there when they needed to be there. We had an amazing leader, our director, Gail Fanumii, who trusted us and just was at the helm of bringing us into this thing that Alaska had never done, that a lot of places had never done. And we just, I wouldn't have been able to do my job without those people. And also, you know, we were able to partner with Alaska's advocacy group, that the RCV advocacy group, who also worked with Grace. You know, Grace is that kind of, she's all over the place, and she was also there in Alaska. And they did so much work and so much coalition building that, you know, that was really helpful when the Alaska Division of Elections had only one person who was tasked with voter education. And so basically people, I couldn't have done my job without people.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. And since you've turned it to Grace, let's stay there. Grace, we have had a number of questions about the outreach that you do. The promise of ranked choice voting is to better represent, as you say, the full range of voters, especially those who are underrepresented. And that is your job, to reach those underrepresented people. But underrepresented people who feel that their voice doesn't matter are the most likely to be disengaged. How do you reach out to those voters?
Fantastic question, but I want to start it by saying I am one person on a part of a team. And so that involves the city, that involves the county, that involves our program team, a lot of great folks who are really invested in making sure all Portlanders receive this information. And so I want to reiterate that the city of Portland and the auditor's office specifically, as well as the transition team, are doing a lot of very broad outreach of making sure that there are ads on buses, making sure that you are going to see something about ranked choice voting somewhere. What our program is doing is for those folks who have been pushed out of the process in the past, for those folks who may be new to the process now, and for those communities that we identified as a priority in that space, that they are getting that information from someone that they trust, right? From an organization that they trust, from a person that they trust, but from somebody who has that relationship where that outreach isn't unfamiliar. It's not someone coming in and telling you what to do. It's saying, hey, this is how our election is going to work this year. This is what your ballot's going to look like. You're able to rank up to 6 choices. You can rank between 1 and 6. Heck, you can rank none if you want to. And then here's why, right? I saw a question in the chat of, you know, when you tell people they have that option to just rank 1, why not explain what the rest of it means? That's what we're doing out in the community, of saying, you can just rank 1. But if that candidate is for some reason out of the race, you don't have a backup choice. Having those conversations with folks and really meeting them where they're at so that they feel confident when they go to cast their ballot. So I am helping to coordinate that group of folks, but really it is the community-based organizations that are doing this work because they know their communities. And so I'm really proud to be a part of the team. I'm really impressed to work with everybody, but I'm mostly impressed with these community organizations who are doing this work, and with the city and county who are doing that really broad outreach, so that between all of our efforts, you know, rising tides lift all boats. We're going to really try to get to every single voter before Election Day. I remember in 2021, I got to work during early voting with Sean because we were helping run election protection. And every single time you got in a cab, you heard the ad about ranked choice voting on the radio. Sometimes it was in Spanish, sometimes it was in Korean, sometimes it was in English, but you heard it. And I'm really hopeful that we're going to have that same level of saturation here in Portland. And there's just such a great group of dedicated people that are a part of that. And I'm really proud to be amongst them.
Thank you. I have a couple technical questions for Kali, but before we get to the technical bits, I do have a question for Sean. New York City has now run 2 elections with ranked choice voting. The first one had a few technical problems, but people were happy with the outcome. How overall has the experience changed the second time around?
I'll say people are used to it now. You know, it was a not it was a monumental effort, I will say that word, to reach as many New Yorkers as we were able to. And my focus was especially the hard to reach communities. You know, the city had ads running, like Grace mentioned, you could not get in a cab or a car in New York City without hearing a ranked choice voting ad. They had billboards all up across the city. They did a mock election in the press that gained over 1 million votes in a 24-hour period. But we knocked on doors. We provided through Meals on Wheels and a lot of other service programs through the libraries, literature in language, and in large print in language on how to complete your ballot. So I think at this point, people know that ranked choice voting is here in New York City. And so they've gotten past the do I like it, do I not like it, and are in the place of it's here, let's use it.
And are they still doing training?
They're definitely still doing trainings, yes, every election cycle.
Okay, well, that's a good thing to know. So now, Kali, the audience here is really wanting to put you on the spot. So I'm going to begin with a question that has some people confused. And you talk about how you put out the results every day. And the question was, if ballots are coming in over several days, which they are doing now because of the postmark rule, what if a candidate gets eliminated on day one, and then the next day they get a whole bunch of votes? How do you redo that?
Yes. So the preliminary results that we put out are also called unofficial results, and they're called that for a reason because they are not the final results of the contest. And what we'll be doing is that each time we provide updates about the results we've received so far, we're making tabulations and running the whole process from beginning to end all over again based on the ballots that we have. So on day one, we get 100,000 votes in, and we've counted those. The tabulation that we're running out and providing information on is based on those 100,000 ballots. If the next day we have another 30,000 ballots counted, we're running that process all over again. So if a candidate looks like they have been eliminated on the first day, that's just based on our current results as we have them, and they are not permanently eliminated. So when we rerun the results again and again, you may see different results, different candidates eliminated in different orders. And you may find, like I said, you may find that we don't know the results of who gets the most votes or who is likely to be elected to office on election night. So that's why it's important to keep checking and keep watching the process as it plays out until all of the ballots are counted.
So just to confirm, each day the computer kind of thinks it's a whole new election and is just starting from scratch.
Sure, yes. It's running it all from scratch to see how the process plays out with all of the ballots that we have at that point in time.
Okay, so let's ask a couple of technical ones, and you don't have to be the one who answers it every time, Kali, because all of you guys are experts in this. Just feel free to take it. One question that's come up a few times is to explain exactly how ballots with over 25% plus one are reallocated. Is it done in rounds, or is it just in the first round? How does that work?
Yeah, so what we're looking at when you're thinking about it, and I think Sean's video maybe helped explain some of this. I thought it was really helpful and a great way to walk through things. But essentially, what we're looking at for each round is we're trying to get with the multi-winner ranked choice voting is we're trying to get each candidate who is going to be elected to office to that 25% plus one threshold. As the example is, if you had 100 votes, then that 100 votes total in the election, we'll try to make this simple, right? And so if a person only needs 26 votes to win, anything that they receive above those 26 votes is going to be excess vote, or I forget the other word that we used was escaping me, but the surplus vote. So that's kind of the extra that they don't need in order to be elected because they've already reached the threshold that they need. And so it wouldn't be fair to say, okay, well, this candidate received 50 votes and they only need 26 votes, so we're just gonna randomly choose voters whose votes we're going to send to their second choice. That wouldn't be fair. That would give some people, more advantage in the process or more say in the process of who gets elected. So instead, we take whatever percentage of the vote comes out of that surplus vote. So, we look at the amount of the surplus and we divide that up equally among the number of voters who voted for that candidate. And that percentage of their vote is what's reallocated. So another way of thinking about it is like, say your vote is worth $1 and the candidate who you voted for with your first choice only needed, 90% of that, 90 cents of your dollar in order to reach the threshold they needed, then it's, that extra 10% of your vote that gets reallocated to your second choice or your third choice, depending on, which candidates are still viable when that portion of your vote is reallocated. So it's really meant to kind of maximize people's input into which candidates get elected. And how we determine it, again, like I said, we're recounting, we're retabulating based on the number of ballots that we have at the time that we're reporting preliminary results. And so the amount of that, what the 25% plus one vote number is going to be, is going to change depending on the total number of ballots we have that we have counted. And so the exact number is going to be different in the contest as we move along and continue to count votes. Hopefully that clarified a little bit, and I'm happy to have other folks jump in because I know this can be really helpful to hear from other voices about how this part of the process works.
Let's move it to Sean, because Sean, you're the visual guy. Do you have any recommendations for something that folks could look at that would explain, or Grace, possibly you do?
I'm sure Grace does. I know there are mock elections that are happening, and I think that's a great interactive way to participate. I think we just recently did one with Favorite Portland Park that allows folks to go through the ranking process and to see the tabulation process as well. So that counting on the back end to come out with a winner.
Okay. Grace, did you want to add anything?
I think we're good. I think if we get more questions about that part of the process and we want to bring it back, I can show a visual there. But I think if we have other questions we want to get to, we can circle back to that at the end, if that's helpful.
That's fine. And I will just add a little plug for the League of Women Voters. We do have a presentation. It's in the process of being videoed, and in a few weeks that will be up and you can come to our site and see it there. Let's see what other questions we have. Here's one that is going to Grace. We'll stick with you. Does Minneapolis have 3-member city council districts?
They don't on their city councils. They use the single winner version for their city council and their mayor. However, on their parks board, they have 3 at-large seats. And so that's how I learned about this system, was those at-large seats in the Minneapolis Parks Board. They were voted best parks in the nation several years in a row, so it's a very good parks board. But they have 3 seats for that. So they use the exact same process as you all do, where it is 3 winners. Voters get to rank those candidates, except this may have changed now, but 10 years ago, the technology around these elections was not as good. We've really made leaps and bounds in terms of how we administer these elections and all sorts of changes to make the process better and more responsive to voters. So when we did it in Minneapolis, voters were only able to rank 3 candidates. So this is leaps and bounds beyond that, where you're getting to rank more candidates for those 3 seats. And so I'm really excited for you all. It feels like you took some of the lessons learned from Minneapolis and even improved upon that. Now, that is not to say that Minneapolis doesn't run fantastic elections, because they do. Have to put that out there.
So here's a question, and I'm not sure who it's for. Is it possible that 3 candidates would not receive 25 plus 1% of the vote, perhaps because ballots were exhausted or something like that? if that is possible, if that has ever happened, what happens then? What is done?
I'm happy to jump in there if folks want, but also happy to let somebody else go.
Jump
So
away.
if a ballot is exhausted, which means a voter, that could mean a voter didn't rank any candidates in that race. Let's say a voter just decided they didn't want to participate in the city council election, or let's say they ranked one candidate and didn't rank any backup choices. And so when that candidate is eliminated, their vote would be exhausted. The way I like to think about your vote is its job is to work as hard for you to have representation as possible. So when you rank those choices, if your first choice is eliminated, it's going to start working for your second choice and keep going. Now, if it runs out of people that it can work for on your ballot, then it is exhausted. It's worked as hard as it can. That's how I think about it. And if that were to happen and a ballot is exhausted, that would be out of the total number of ballots, right? So that total number would go down if ballots were exhausted. And so if no candidate receives that 25% because of exhausted ballots, then we would be operating on whatever 25% is with the ballots that we have. Now, I think that question also could be referring to what if, there's a lot of folks running for office in Portland this year, which is exciting. A lot of people with a vision for a city is very cool, and I'm very excited to see it. Now, the question could be, what if no one reaches that 25% on first choices, right? What if no candidate has enough votes to be win a seat right away? And we would just do the process that we described before, where if no candidate has enough votes to win, we eliminate the candidate with the fewest votes. Those voters would instantly have their vote go to their next choice. So it'd be that process until somebody reaches that 25%. So in either situation, we will find our winners, and folks will reach that threshold.
Good. I'm toggling back and forth between the questions and you. Do any of our other panelists want to answer that one, or is that one pretty much taken care of? If so, we have a question for Tiffany. This is referring to there's a campaign to do away with ranked choice voting in Alaska. What happened with that?
Yeah, what happened with that? So there is a repeal effort going on, and it will be on the ballot in November there in Alaska to repeal ranked choice voting and their new primary system and some other parts of that whole ballot measure. I think there's been some legal back and forth with it, but as of now, it's going to be on the ballot. I'm interested to see how it goes over there. I think that it worked well in Alaska. I think that people understood it, and they're gonna be using it again here in November on their ballot, and so yeah, I mean that's what's happening with it so far. A repeal effort it's not the first time that's happening. It's happened in some other RCV jurisdictions, but some RCV jurisdictions have been doing RCV for decades, and so I think I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen over there, but they will be voting on it again, and so we'll see what voters think about it.
In general, I want to ask our panelists: are there any groups or interest groups that generally tend to oppose ranked choice voting?
Sean, if you want to, you can, but I think here's what I can say. I think there are a lot of folks who are very accustomed to a certain way of elections working. There's whole industries around elections across the country, right? Changing that changes all kinds of dynamics. And so I think we found sometimes that change can rattle folks, and sometimes they don't like to be rattled. And so I think what we're seeing is, oftentimes the way that things move is a pendulum, and there can be a step in one direction, then a step back in the other. But I think what it really comes down to is that's up to the voters. And so, making sure that we're doing, when we do education work, our job is not to make you love a policy, right? That is not our job. Our job is to make sure that you feel ready to go on election day. And so, while most likely we wouldn't all and I actually absolutely will not speak for Kali in this regard, but for the rest of us who do this sort of outside of government, Kali's here executing the law, and we are amazed and thrilled with how well the county and city have done in doing that. So just taking them out of this conversation generally, but I probably wouldn't love educating voters about this system so much if I didn't have a bit of a soft spot for it. So I will say that. But I think our job when we're doing voter education, again, isn't to sway your feelings about it. It's to make sure you're ready to go. And so whatever you do after that election, however you feel about the results, however you feel about the process is up to you. And we're not here to tell you what's good or bad. And so when it comes to Alaska, where I am working with folks there again this year to educate voters about how their ballot is going to look in November, we focus on the here and now. And then when we get to November, 6th, but also we know how election results in Alaska are. So it'll probably be closer to the 11th or 13th because we have so many ballots coming in from rural communities. We'll know what the voters decided, and that is up to them. But in the meantime, our job is to stay focused on what's in front of us and what is inevitable, which is that both in Alaska this year and in Portland, ranked choice voting is a system that's going to be used.
Okay, so that is very helpful. I have another question for Kali. I'm not completely sure I get it, but I'll ask it the best way that I can. And that is it true that you only vote for one candidate? You won't have any additional votes? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question completely. Maybe you have more insight into that, Kali?
I'm not sure either, so I apologize if I am answering the wrong question. But if we're talking about, like your vote only counts once, even if you rank multiple people, and we are going through this process of, ultimately for the city council races, you'll end up with three winning candidates. Your vote doesn't count more than one whole vote. So you don't get multiple votes in the contest. That doesn't happen if some of your vote is reallocated, you don't get more than one vote. It's just maybe a percentage of your vote gets to move on to another candidate. So hopefully that explains what the person was trying to get at.
I think what you said earlier was very good, which was your district is electing 3 people. It is not that you individually are electing 3 people. And just to make sure I understand what you're saying, there's a difference between the number of votes you have and the number of ranks you have. And it's just like if you went to a buffet or a dinner and they said, what's your first choice? If that meal isn't available, what's your second and what's your third? It doesn't mean that they're going to bring you 3 meals. It means that you're choosing the order in which you would like to have them. All right. Well, let's see. I might have one more question. Let's see if we have time for one more. And that is, let's see. Could you tell us a little bit more about, I think Tiffany raised this, you were there. If you could tell us a little bit more about how long did it take? How many votes did they do in that visual count that you saw, the hand count at Multnomah County? How many ballots did they have and how long did that take?
So the first test was 5,000 ballots, and we actually finished a couple of days sooner than we were predicted to finish, which was really great. And so then we did like a shorter mock hand count after that with maybe like 1,500 votes. I could be wrong about that though. I'm trying to remember how many people were there actually doing that. The counting boards is what they set it up in the same way that they would set up a hand count or, for any other election that they've done in the past. And so it was set up that way. It's just that the procedures were a little different. And so, but man, Grace, do you remember how many people were actually on these counting boards doing these 5,000 ballots? Grace was there too.
I want to say we had about 30 people. I had my team of 4 that was the best team, so it's hard to remember when we were
Grace
having the best.
Yeah, I was on the best team actually, but it's whatever. And so I think that was 3 days that it took for us to do those 5,000 ballots.
And how close did you get to what the computer had said?
It was on it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
yeah.
It came out exactly the same. So
Yeah.
what you're saying is that even in the multi-winner ranked choice voting, it may take a while when we poor humans try to do it, but it is doable.
It is doable. And the only thing that I will say is that when humans do it, we are humans. And so you're probably more likely to encounter some mistakes there because we're humans. But yeah, it can be done. Absolutely.
Well, we're coming very close to the end of our time. So before we conclude, do you folks have any final thoughts before we wind up for the day? Your thoughts are all exhausted, I see.
I'll kick it off and just say you all have this. Like, it's something that voters intuitively understand. And so it's just a matter of making sure that you are sharing visuals with them so that they know how to fill out their ballot and complete the process.
I'll just say that anyone joining on this call, anyone watching, anyone listening, I want to say that one, reiterating Sean's thoughts of this is an exciting, we get to experiment with our democracy and see what is going to work for folks. And this is a bold change that you all have made to your city. And I personally find it very exciting that folks were brave enough to take this step. I also want to say that you all are incredibly lucky to have the League of Women Voters of Portland. They are doing absolutely incredible work to educate the community. Their presentation is top notch. I know that they're almost overwhelmed, but I really want to stress that you have an ally in voter education in the league, and utilize it as much as you can. And when they get overwhelmed, I'll jump in and help out as much as I can. But I can't stress enough how thankful I am to be invited to participate here, but also just how thankful I am for the work that you all are doing.
Well, before anyone puts this in the chat, I need to ask you, Grace, were you paid to say that?
Nope. And I'll tell anybody anytime for the rest of my life. So.
All right. Any last thoughts, Tiffany or Kali?
I'll say something really, really quickly, just to reiterate what Grace and Sean said. Really excited to see it happening over there, and I think that it's really great that there are other organizations there in the city that are helping to do voter education. And in case you don't know what those organizations are, you may forget one of them. Go to the website that was linked earlier, the Multnomah County Votes website. I've been to it. There's lots of good information on there. You can see those videos. They also have, materials and those videos that you can share within your circles and things like that. And that's a really great way to get this information out there. And so I hope that you do that. I recommend that you do that. And nobody paid me to say any of this stuff either. Nothing, none of the Portland stuff, at least, nothing about y'all that it's going to be great and that you're in good hands there.
I'm pretty safe. We're all volunteers. We don't have any money to pay you. So there you are. I want to just maybe end with asking Kali, do you guys feel ready over at Multnomah County elections?
Well, what a perfect question to ask me for what I wanted to say for my closing remark, which is just we've got a lot of great teams working on this, folks who are working on the educational side of things, and those of us at the county and with the city who've been working on implementation. We've been working and planning on this for years. And so we are very prepared to bring a ranked choice voting election for City of Portland voters. I have a lot of confidence in that. And we're looking forward to sending out those ballots soon.
Well, thank you, everyone, for a stimulating and informative discussion. I especially want to thank our Invisible League volunteer here, Mimi Alcar. You see her lovely picture there, and there's the real Mimi, who has been monitoring our chat. And of course, I want to thank our panelists who have done a tremendous job of giving us a deeper understanding of how Portland is going through a very big change. but it's not one that we should fear, and to know that all of you are working to make it clearer for all of the people of Portland to understand how to move forward and cast their ballots with confidence. So I will now turn the program back to our lovely Vice President, Audrey Zunkel-DeCourcy.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay, Portland, are you ready to vote? I want to thank again our panelists for your excellent remarks. I also appreciate the over 100 of you in the audience, our live audience, for your thoughtful questions. We want to give a special thanks to moderator Melanie and her team, the Ranked Choice Voting Committee, volunteers who helped bring this webinar to you. We know that no one panel can address every issue, but we hope you gained some valuable insights tonight about Portland's new ranked choice voting system. And however you feel about ranked choice voting, it's what we're using for city offices now, so we want every Portlander to feel confident when they cast their vote. You can join us for our full series of community education events for the 2024 election. Next month, on October 9, we'll be discussing Portland's new city government structure. Then on November 20th, we'll hold an election recap and reflection. You can register and learn more about those panels at our website, lwvpdx.org. Our website features our Election 2024 hub with detailed information you need to be an informed voter. You can also sign up there for league presentations run by our volunteers, where volunteers come to you to bring a workshop to a community group you might be a part of to train you in ranked choice voting. Real live in-person presentations, workshops. You can reach out and schedule one of those with us. Funding for this program is provided by donations to the League of Women Voters of Portland's Education Fund and from the Carol and Velma Saling Foundation. Thanks also to Metro East for recording this webinar. The League of Women Voters is a membership organization. We thank our members for their generous volunteer and financial support for our educational programs, and we welcome you to join our league. Membership and donor information can be found on our website at lwvpdx.org. Please tell your friends, colleagues, and family to watch this video or listen to the program podcast, which will be available next week on our website. Thanks again to our panelists and our audience. Have a great evening, everyone.